and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, happy day 108 of the year. I'm eager to just jump right into some of the review lessons before we start with today's lesson itself. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll begin. Lesson 91, miracles are seen in light. Lesson 92, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Lesson 93, light and joy and peace abide in me. Lesson 94, I am as God created me. Lesson 95, I am one self united with my Creator. Lesson 96, salvation comes from my one self. Lesson 97, I am spirit. Lesson 98, I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. Lesson 99, salvation is my only function here. Lesson 100, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Lesson 101, God's will for me is perfect happiness. Lesson 102, I share God's will for happiness for me. Lesson 103, God, being love, is also happiness. Lesson 104, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Lesson 105, God's peace and joy are mine. Lesson 106, let me be still and listen to the truth. Lesson 107, truth will correct all errors in my mind. And today's lesson, lesson 108, to give and to receive are one in truth. Vision depends on today's idea. The light is in it, for it reconciles all seeming opposites. And what is light except the resolution, born of peace, of all your conflicts and mistaken thoughts into one concept which is wholly true? Even that one will disappear, because the thought behind it will appear instead to take its place. And now you are at peace forever, for the dream is over then. True light that makes true vision possible is not the light the body's eyes behold. It is a state of mind that has become so unified that darkness cannot be perceived at all. And thus, what is the same is seen as one, while what is not the same remains unnoticed, and for it is not there. This is the light that shows no opposites, and vision, being healed, has power to heal. And this is the light that brings your peace of mind to other minds, to share it and be glad that they are one with you and with themselves. This is the light that heals because it brings single perception based upon one frame of reference from which one meaning comes. Here are both giving and receiving, seen as different aspects of one thought, whose truth does not depend on which is seen as first, nor which appears to be in second place. Here it is understood that both occur together and that the thought remain complete. And in this understanding is the base on which all opposites are reconciled, because they are perceived from the same frame of reference which unifies this thought. This thought, completely unified, will serve to unify all thought. This is the same as saying one correction will suffice for all correction, or that to forgive one brother wholly is enough to bring salvation to all minds. For these are but some special cases of one law which holds for every kind of learning, if it be directed by the one who knows the truth. To learn that giving and receiving are the same has special usefulness because it can be tried so easily and seen as true. And when this special case has proved it always works in every circumstance where it is tried, the thought behind it can be generalized to other areas of doubt and double vision. And from there, it will extend and finally arrive at the one thought which underlies them all. Today we practice with this special case of giving and receiving. We will use this simple lesson in the obvious because it has results we cannot miss. To give is to receive. Today we will attempt to offer peace to everyone and see how quickly peace returns to us. Light is tranquility, and in that peace is vision given us, and we can see. So we begin the practice periods with the instruction for today and say, to give and to receive are one in truth. I will receive what I am giving now. Then close your eyes and for 5 minutes, think of what you would hold out to everyone to have it yours. You might, for instance, say, to everyone I offer quietness. To everyone I offer peace of mind. To everyone I offer gentleness. Say each one slowly and then pause a while, expecting to receive the gift you gave, and it will come to you in the amount in which you gave to it. You will find you have exact return for what you asked. It might be helpful, too, to think of one to whom to give your gifts. He represents the others, and through him you give to all. Our very simple lesson for today will teach you much. Effect and cause will be far better understood from this time on, and we will make much faster progress now. Think of the exercise for today as quick advances in your learning, made still faster and more sure each time you say, to give and to receive are one in truth. The early phrase that she said, I would just want to repeat here. True light that makes true vision possible is not the light the body's eyes behold. It is a state of mind that has become so unified that darkness cannot be perceived at all. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. I think I am. Uh-oh. Okay, it's coming. I think it's coming. My sneeze went away. I hate when that happens. True light that makes true vision possible is not the light the body's eyes behold. It is a state of mind that has become so unified that darkness cannot be perceived at all. And thus, what is the same is seen as one, while what is not the same remains unnoticed, for it is not there. Y'all, I was supposed to go live this morning, and just before I went on, actually, I was going on late in the morning because I actually had counseling this morning, and during counseling, some really hard things came up. Hard that when it was time to go live, I just didn't feel like I could come on and be really authentic with you, and it was interesting. I needed to process and just kind of tend to me. I've learned something over the last few years, that when I can tell that I'm out of alignment. So when we talk about alignment on the show, I think of it as kind of a visual hierarchy of in terms of being in alignment, I am bringing my mind, my heart, my soul, my actions, my beliefs, bringing all of that into literally vertical alignment under the kind of under the hierarchical order of who do I want to be, but also who does God say that I am? What is the kind of capital T truth in terms of, yes, who do I want to be, and what is important to me? What are my values? But ultimately, what does God say? And so that's the concept of vertical alignment. And I can tell when I am getting out of alignment. I can tell when my mind or my behavior, my actions, my emotions start kind of drifting off in one way or another. And when I am getting out of alignment, that is precisely when I need to just pause and be quiet. And actually, when I am not in alignment, is precisely when it's like, just be quiet, And I think that there's going to be a lot of that, even just the rest of today, and just being quiet and being aware of what does God's voice say that is louder and more true than my own emotions, than even my own thoughts. Cognitively, the thoughts that we form about the past so often is formed and developed as a result of not processing the past in terms of the emotions that we carried back then. And so a lot of our thoughts cognitively, our IQ, let's say, about the world is actually shaped and formed by things that have happened in the past. So I fundamentally cannot see the truth of what is right in front of me if I am looking through a biased perception from an unhealed past. And so my job and our job, even just here on the Knowing Show, is okay, how do I bring my thoughts, my body, my being into alignment with the truth, with what is a higher order, higher principle, a higher, honestly, even reality than even here right now. We've been talking about this over the last week and a half. We received news the day after Easter. So Sunday night, my uncle passed away just in his sleep. He was 61 years old and there was nothing wrong. And there's just been a lot over the last 2 weeks that's been happening. Even right now, most of my family was at a funeral today. And it's been a hard couple of weeks, and here's what's so interesting. And we've been talking about this on the Knowing Show over the last few days, is that there is a superordinate truth that surpasses even the truth of right here, right now. So my uncle passing away and being buried, that is a physical truth that he is no longer with us. And yet, would I actually believe that there is a truth that I'm going to see him again? That concept of eternity and the concept that time is removed in God's perspective is a higher truth and a greater truth than right here, right now, that he's no longer with us. And that concept of what is more true than right here, right now is so incredibly important, because that is what gives us hope. That is ultimately what allows us to endure the dark night of the soul, to go through sometimes even kind of the hellish times where we need hope even just to survive. And so today's lesson around to give and to receive are one in truth. To really believe that then allows for us to live in the fullness of, okay, am I actually going to give away this love that is precious to me, give away hope, and expect that I'll actually receive it in return? And that kind of what is it, a water wheel, where it's just like the flowing in, we receive and then we give it out, and thus it's like this ongoing back and forth. So when we actually give it, we end up receiving it ourselves. And man, isn't that a glorious concept, y'all? Because otherwise life's hard. Life is really, really hard. And so if we think that with every single time we give, every single time we're going to try to have hope in the midst of pain, but rather in the giving of hope to the rest of the world, in even giving hope to ourselves, we are filled. And so that's kind of this whole water wheel analogy that is applicable to kind of the point of what she's making today, is that which we give, we also receive in direct proportion to what we give in the first place. I'm going to go ahead and just jump over here in the chat. Wayne, good to see you. Callum, hello. Mamadou, hello. I'm actually, let me do this. For those of you who are new to the show, first, welcome. Second, we are being very cautious about kind of what we're allowing to take place in the chat. And so I am just jumping in here for those of you who are new here and maybe not talking in the way that that we should. That's permissible, not even just permissible, but that's really supportive of our mission here on the show, which is to cultivate every part of the human being, the intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual and physical. Our body holds and remembers data, and our spirit and our emotions and our mind are to be cultivated. And so for those of you who are not chatting in a way that allows for that, I'm going to go ahead and just block you guys on here. A Bordeaux fan, I'm going to go ahead and block you. Christopher Adams, hello. I will confess I'm guilty of viewing and doing unto certain people in my life, not the same as God would. That's why Matthew 25, verse 40 hits every time I read it. Christopher Adams, I was talking about that very thing in therapy actually this morning, around how much I really want love to be the very thing that transforms me, so that I'm not operating out of fear, so that I'm not operating in reaction to what I'm afraid will happen to me, but that ultimately I'm really there's this concept of renewing our minds. And y'all, that's partially what we're doing here, is renewing our mind, is deciding I no longer want to live according to these old narratives, old scripts, old patterns and ways of being. I want to renew that and kind of like jumpstart a new pattern that's old and not actually based on the truth. So when we're talking about a truth that transcends and a truth that is actually far greater than this present physical reality, what is that? And what have I been believing in its place? And so part of doing this work to know is to understand, what is the past? What have I been believing that is not true? And what would it look like for me to really be able to heal and allow for something new to come in its stead? And then what would that look like as the result? It's really interesting. Just jumping back here in the chat. Jose, hello. Bill Crew. Robin, hello. Question 1, answer. Robert, hello. Benito de Roma, hello. Giovanni. Winston, Brian, I'm glad to see you. Unorthodox ads. Do you believe everything is already written? Oof. What a question. No, I don't. And I don't know. I don't. And I don't believe it's already pre-written. And I don't think anyone can know for sure. Sammy Lamed, I am going to hide you on the channel because it doesn't seem like you want to be here, but thanks for listening. My music, thanks for joining. DJ, hello, I'm glad to see you. I feel like I've been MIA, so I'm glad to see a familiar face. Everything is not written. We have free will. I agree with that. In Greek, the term for repentance is metanoia, which means to transcend the mind. This makes sense considering what's written in Romans 12:2. My brother was telling me about the word metanoia. I'm actually very excited to have him here on the show. I think that we'll have him on here. He's done a lot of digging into the origin words of what was really intended by so many words throughout the biblical text. And a lot of them actually hold a very different meaning than what I ever thought. So I love learning. Socks with Sandals, good evening. I'm glad to see you. Little Shredder, the alchemical gold you help people to realize for themselves. Oh, it's truly inspiring and needed for all. Truth is always a genuine breath away. Free the shackles of being lost in the trance of thought. Ooh, I love that. Well, first, this is beautiful. Truth is always a genuine breath away. Beautiful and brilliantly stated. Free the shackles of being lost in the trance of thought. The trance of thought, that alone is like a book probably. Y'all, isn't it so true that so much of what we kind of get stuck in, it is like a trance. Like it's like we get almost possessed by these thoughts and narratives and effectively what's not true. And we get stuck in there and it's this cycle and we can't get out. And so I've thought of it, I forget who said this, but it's akin to growth and healing. Actually, so much of that is about just getting out of that cycle. And it's just about interrupting the cycle of, going down the path of that endless spiraling pit and that spiraling thought. And so to allow for us to cultivate the awareness, emotional intelligence is the ability to become aware of, understand, control, and convey one's own emotions. The very first thing is to be aware. Part of stopping the spiral is to just be aware that it's happening. And that immediately breaks us from the trance of thought. So I love that you said it the way that you did. The trance of thought, brilliant and so beautifully stated. The trance of thought into holy awareness and forgiveness or redemption for all. I didn't even see that when I was talking about, yes, awareness. I love that. And on the other side of that, to your point, forgiveness. And y'all, that's what so much of A Course in Miracles talks about. We were reading lesson 108 today from A Course in Miracles, and so much of what she is talking about, how our number one function here is freedom but we get to the point of freedom and being able to create and ultimately mirror the greatest creator through forgiveness, through the awakening from the trance of thought, as Metal Shredder said, and ultimately freeing ourselves from the past, that, letting go of the grip that we've been holding on to someone else so tightly. RK69, hello. He gives us free will of choice to do his will. I love that. Jose, how often do you go live? I go live every morning for the most part. There are some days where it's been a little bit crazy. The last 3 weeks have been a lot. 3 weeks ago, I was traveling in Texas for the week. The next week, I received word on Monday that my uncle passed. Flew to Maryland that day. And then Wednesday, this past week, I flew to New Orleans. And then yesterday, I flew home. So I feel like I'm just catching my breath. But for the most part, we go live every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. And then usually again in the evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So I'm slowly getting back on track. And my hope is that this upcoming week, we will get back to it. Wafa, hello. I'm glad to see you. Bill Crew, Cat. Oh. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying here, Bill. Cats don't love. They try to obsessively possess people. Love is an extension of that. When I say possess, I meant in ownership. Staking your claim. So, Bill, would you say that love is staking your claim? I think eventually you'll learn right, but you're stuck going all over human information that they've recorded. It'll be a while. I'm not sure I know what you're getting at, but I would love to hear more. Christopher Adams. Before I get there, Nando, hello. RK, Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. I love that. And that really is those, the concept, you shall know a tree by its fruit. Well, what's the fruit in our lives? What does the way that we show up, the way that we act, what we think about, how we speak to one another, what does that dictate about who we are and what we believe? And where our allegiance lies and where our identity lies, all of the things that come out of us are indicative of what's within us. And so what does our external behavior, actions, words have to say about who we are? DJ, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. I love that. That gave me chills. Wow. Jonathan Goski, hello. Image Elohim, hello. Ed Camino, yes, that was someone's handle that I was calling out for middle shutters. RK for Corinthians 13:11. Farshadara, hello. Luis. Lucky 97 651. What's within you? James says, my kids are my fruit. Luis says, cooked apples and pears. Y'all, it's really important to consider this, you know. And James, I actually love that you said my kids are my fruit. How are they living? You know, what do they model, and what do they reflect to you about you, and about how you show up and how you live? You know, that's probably one of the best mirrors is our children, I'm sure. I don't have kids yet, and I'm hopeful to have them one day. And I can only imagine, you know, that's like, talk about a look in the mirror. It's like, oh my gosh, having your littles just reflect back to you who you are in so many ways. The Gray Tone, hello. I'm glad to see you. Edward Wolf Seifer? I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. Eldarin. My kids are bananas. Y'all, it is interesting when we think about what does the external world around me have to say about me and my inner world. You know, if we want to look at where we need to grow and change, and probably where we need to heal, we can look at what do our behaviors have to say about us? What does our words, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what are we saying? And man, I think that this is a really good moment, just this Saturday. I'm actually going to take time this afternoon and just look at my year ahead and plan quarter two. And, you know, it's crazy to me. We're already at April 18th. It's just insane. And so I'm going to be taking time and really looking ahead. And what does success look like for me in 2026 in each regard? When I think of success, you know, it's thinking about it in each category of emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, physical and spiritual. Like, where do I want to end up at the end of this year in each category? And then getting more specific. So emotionally might translate into my key relationships. Where do I want to be with my darling? Where do I want to be with even my parents and even my niece? I'm her godmother. So who do I want to be in relation to my niece? What do I want to have done? And then also, what do I want just that relationship to look like at the end of the year? And then my business for the intellectual intelligence, breaking that down even further, you know, with what we're building here on the Knowing Community. What does success look like there at the end of this year? And then once we have clarity about the end of the year, where do we want to be? Then reverse engineering to, okay, what does quarter 4 look like? Quarter 3, quarter 2, where do I want to be in June? And so I do this on a pretty regular basis every year. My birthday is in July, and so it's a nice kind of halfway point through the year. And so it allows for us to just take a pause and examine. And actually, I would love to ask what, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead, Luis. If you don't mind, I would love for our chat to just continue to stay on point here. So if you can kind of redirect your chat to discuss what we're speaking to, that'd be great. I'd love to know, when is everyone's birthday? Because frankly, I love being able to take a moment and pause leading up to my birthday and after my birthday, and just really use that as a stopping point in the year. So I'm curious when everyone's birthday is. If everyone can put that in the chat. DJ, the outside world has no bearing on my self or worth. I've seen what majority of the world cheers for and applauds. Let them boo or hate me. I've seen what they cheer for. Oh, I love that, Christopher Adams. Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinks, so he is. What you think leads to your behavior, and that behavior becomes a habit. If that habit persists, it becomes a lifestyle. RK July. No, I'm end of July. Chief, the medicine, August 17th. Nice. 16th of March. So you just had your birthday. Turned 39 April 2nd. Happy birthday, DJ. February 8th, James. 12/27. So you're right there for Christmas baby. Y'all, it's cool because each one of these dates, I like to think of it as like, when am I 6 months out from my birthday, and also like kind of leading right up to my birthday, because each one, I honestly, I'm curious if any of y'all have a tradition around your birthday in terms of, kind of honoring the change of the year with any kind of ritual or practice. Any, to your point, Chris Adams habit. I really love looking at what's the one thing I did this year that really catalyzed me to being closer to my eulogy. I wrote my eulogy when I turned 30. And from there, I've kind of looked at my life and I'm like, okay, what do I need to change? Where am I not on track to be able to have this eulogy said about me? Because we don't know how long we have. So how do I speed things up and live closer today to that eulogy? And so I like to think that every single, Kevin, I'm going to say the same thing I said to Luis, just if you can kind of orient your comments to what we're talking about here, that would be great. Would love to have you stick around, but we are going to put folks on chat who are just being inappropriate or disruptive. But I'm glad you're here. So just going back to this concept around birthdays, there's something around that mark in the year that is, again, it's the breaking us out of the trance that we live every day. We're just living on autopilot. We do the same thing every single day. To your point, Christopher Adams, it becomes a lifestyle. So where do we need to actually break up our lifestyle and just take a pause and examine, oh, am I living the way that I want to live? Am I actually on the right track? Luis, last time I did something for my B-Day, my mom did it as a kid. Honestly, I'm curious. Luis, did you say when your birthday was? I don't think I saw that. But I think that'd be fun. What a good opportunity. Guys, and DJ says B-Day has always just been another day for me. Yo, what a fun thing to use our birthdays this year. I know, DJ, you just had yours, but it's still your birthday month. To use our birthdays as a time to really honor and express gratitude for the life that we've been given, the breath that has been breathed into our lungs. How do we honor that? How do we honor that life? This life is so precious. So how do we actually take a moment to kind of roll our shoulders back and go, man, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And how do I honor this life and live it well? And so taking the pause to honor the birthday, Kevin, no. So I would love for you to, I would love to know when your birthday is actually, Kevin, because we were talking about when everyone's birthday is. Isaac says, my birthday is April 22nd. Oh, nice. That's so soon. Y'all, this is such a small example of kind of a larger theme of breaking the mundane, breaking the ordinary, to pause and analyze, how am I living? Where can I actually choose more joy? Where can I actually experience and live more in alignment with who I was created to be in the first place? Because y'all, if we're not living consciously, we're going to do the exact same thing you were saying earlier about living basically in a trance of thought, trance of the ongoing ordinary every single day, that we're not even living awake. We're living kind of asleep. So this honoring of the birthday is a really beautiful opportunity to just pause and honor the breath that was breathed in our lungs. Analyze, am I living in accordance with the person that I want to be, the person that is worthy of my creator? And am I proud of how I'm showing up every single day? So the birthday is actually just a really beautiful opportunity to do that. All right, scrolling up. I love it. DJ says, I'm grateful for another year. Trust me, I'm lucky to be alive. Me too. I love that. Um, Robert Whitlow, this is interesting. The only hope for humankind is through reading books. I've never thought that, but that's an interesting perspective. I think there's so much in books. Scott Carter, hello. Gas Clips, September 16th. You know what's so funny? My first niece, Alyssa Rose, was born September 8th. And I guess 6 years later, my second niece was born September 8th. So September is a special birthday month for all of us. My birthday was within the last year. Eldrin, mine too. I love it. Okay. Analyzing has become a sickness for me. You know, it's funny. I'll have folks on here at times where they'll say something like that, Bill, where it's effectively like get out of your head. And we were talking about the trance of thought. And so much of this is such a duality, right? Where it's about the cultivation of the intellectual intelligence and the emotional intelligence and physical and spiritual. So to be a holistic person effectively is to activate these different parts of us so that we're not just living in our mind and we're not just living in our emotions and we're not just living in our spirit. You know, my dad has this phrase where talking about some folks that he and I know well, where it's like they're so heavenly minded, they're of no earthly good. And I thought that was such an interesting point because based on how I was raised, it was like, actually, this is the ultimate good. The ultimate ideal almost was to just be so transfixed on God. But in so doing, we are completely disconnected from the physical world. Like Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is here and now in you. And so what does it look like to actually bring heaven to earth and live with spirit and mind and emotion and the physical body all activated right here, right now? This changes everything. And this is so exciting because now we actually have the opportunity to have the power of God, made manifest in us and love people like that. You know, this is what we talk about here every morning is how do I live in the fullness of who God created me to be? And so much of that is in activating every part of us. What's in the book is irrelevant. What's in the brain is everything, Robert Willis says. What a good point. Really, it's the cultivation of the mind through reading. That's such a good point. Elohim, so I think you're saying November 22nd is your birthday. Oh, I love that. I would spend 5 minutes that morning of my birthday reflecting on the lessons I learned. I try to make peace with the past and think of 3 things I want to accomplish in the following year. I love that, Christopher Adams. That is so good. What a good habit. You know, it really is. It's honoring the past and then also honoring the future. So that's just such a beautiful practice. I feel like I need to sneeze. I had to sneeze earlier. No, I need to hold on. I do need to sneeze. Give me 1 second. I will be I'm actually just going to step aside for a second. Okay. I've never exited. Okay. Coming back to this. DJ Joy has been such a foreign thought for so long. I've been numb for so long. But I've seen glimpses of emotions. It's confusing, but got to keep on going, I suppose. DJ, I'm wondering, I don't know how you would feel kind of leaning into that if you're up for it. So you tell me if you are, and then I'd have some questions there if you're up for it. I always viewed emotions as weakness. That was my approach to emotions, and I had no concept of emotional health. I had no concept of emotional intelligence. Just emotions were so foreign. And so only in the last few years have I come to learned like, oh, wow, emotions actually are really what make up kind of the right hemisphere of the brain. They ultimately help facilitate creativity and to nurture people. And they're important. And so I've only just recently come to appreciate the EQ. And that's why it says emotional intelligence, is because like intellectual intelligence, it's almost like a data pool of what am I thinking about? What does the data of the mind hold? And then our emotions hold data, whether we like it or not, whether we're numb to them or not. Our emotions are still holding and possessing data. And so the goal is to, what the first part of emotional intelligence is, to be aware, to understand, to control and convey one's own emotions. And the second half of that same definition is the ability to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. So if we're not accessing our own emotions and intelligent of them, it's going to be so incredibly hard for us to have empathy in relationship and even make wise action in relationship as well. Wayne, good to see you. I'm so glad to see you. Your note actually meant a lot when you were like 20 minutes out, so I wanted to thank you for that. Wayne, what comes first, the mind or the brain? I cannot say. Does anyone else have an opinion on that? What comes first, the mind or the brain? I have a thought, but I'm not sure. Bill Crew, I have a major bullshit sensor. You know what, Bill? I love that you say that. That is something I've had to effectively restore, like re-access. DJ, one of the things about emotions for me, that when I didn't allow myself to feel emotions, emotions actually really help us to access even intuition. Like intuition can really come through emotions and also the physical body. But man, being numb to emotions usually actually cuts off some access to our physical body, because emotions are actually automatic. Like they just are the automatic sensations that rise in our body, and then we sense it and feel it physically. And then we get to kind of be intelligent about what's going on inside of us. But for so long as I cut off access to emotions, I also cut off access to my intuition, because I just wasn't allowing myself to feel good or bad. And so I also, to your point, Bill, I kind of cut off that bullshit sensor, and I had to work really, really, really hard to reclaim that. The gray tone. I love this. Live streams are the new book. Don't get stuck in the past. That's so interesting. Oh, wow. The gas clips has a brain explode. 25th, like, oh, RK, thanks. Isaac, I'm 25 right now, but I'm turning 26. Happy birthday. I love that. I'd love to know if you have any, what's your one thing for this year? And if you haven't picked one yet, if you're open to a book, speaking of books, the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan is very, very good. Ed Camino, Paul's all things to all men. Robert Whitlow, thank you. I dive into books and scripture. It is just chaos, LOL for me, but I crave chaotic. I digress. Oh, that's so interesting. Bill, the brain is always in control. Christopher Adams, the first gift I had received for my birthday in over 10 years was about a year ago, as a pair of gloves. I just wanted to cry, to be honest, because it felt incredible to be thought of for once. Y'all, isn't it wild how disconnected we are, and how it's like, man, I'm so glad you got that present, Christopher. I'm so glad. And I think we could all use a lot more love. That's my theory. Image Elohim, yes, we humans dominate the environment with weakness. Weakness is not strongness. We're weaker of gorillas, lions, crocodiles, even of the Most High God, but we are the lamb that dominates the wolf. I feel like there's more there than I feel like I need to sit with that. Bill Crew, but they can be tricked and misled. Interesting. It's curious because I write and play guitar, so I have an aspect, I think, but it's just like going through the motions majority of the time. I don't know if I can really explain it. DJ, I'd be curious. Oh, what an interesting exercise. I don't know if you'd be open to this, but like if you were to play guitar and write, like allowing yourself to access if an emotion does come up, if you sense something in your physical body, to sit with that sensation and to even ask why and explore it and see if there's maybe something that would come out. You know, I think of this concept. It's the phrase pouring out the soul. And actually, it was the very first time I heard this concept. I was sitting in church a couple years ago. I was sitting with my mom, my dad, and my brother, and we were all working together in the family business at the time. And the sermon was on a verse in Psalms, and it said, pour out your soul. And it was just it was interesting because for so much of the time, actually the goal was for me was to suppress the soul, was to silence the soul, was to control the soul, rather than actually sitting and or standing or kneeling before God and saying, okay, God, here is everything that is within me, and pouring it out, and effectively in the pouring out, thus the releasing of what's within the soul, and then giving it to God and saying, all right, God, like I'm ready to either release this or give it to you or surrender it, to let go of it. And in that process, we pour it out and we relinquish and we let go of what's been like bottling up and building up within us. And in the pouring out, you know, there's creative expression, I think. There's also creating now more space. In the pouring out of the soul, it's almost like we have now expanded capacity to thus receive more. Which brings us back to our lesson today. To give and receive are one. So in giving, in the release, in the pouring out, we create space to then receive. I love that full circle. That's so fun. So DJ, if you're up for it, I'd be curious if you'd be willing to try that. And then I'd love to see what you write, if you're willing to share. But if not, I feel like it's just it would be such an interesting exercise if you're up for it. And I'd be curious to see what happens. The mind is the reflection of the brain. Without the brain, there is no mind. Well, and then honestly, it comes to definitions. What is mind? What is brain? Bang Top, hello. I'm glad to see you. Morrison, hello. Life can feel like a heavyweight bout with 8 billion opponents. James, connected with no personal connection, feels like. Nicole, I'm so glad to see you. What time zone are you in? You're heading to bed, but I'm so glad to see you. And I love that you put a rose there. My dad has always called me Rosie, and my niece's middle name is Rose after me. So I love that you put the rose there. But I'm glad to see your name here. Bill, I've seen people get cheated on and but I love them and can't leave, or I need them. Emotions can suck, and I've been working on mastering self-control. Emotions can suck. And, you know, it's interesting. I think that so much to your point about mastering self-control, you know, one of the fruits of the spirit, to go back to what is the fruit of living in alignment? Like what are okay, so in business, we talk about key performance indicators, KPIs. What are the indicators that show me whether I'm on the right path? What are the indicators that show me that I'm it's kind of, and in a business scenario, it's KPIs could be, okay, if I'm doing a digital marketing campaign, what are the views? What are the clicks? What's the cost per lead? But for me, I actually take that concept into my ordinary, regular personal life. And I'm like, okay, the fruit of self-control, the fruit of gentleness, love, peace, joy, all of those actually are indicators for me whether I'm living in alignment. And if I'm out of alignment, then, you know, it would be the antithesis of each one. Fear, maybe even discouragement, It could be pride, ego. Like those then would be the antithesis of what the fruit of the Spirit looks like in the positive KPIs. And so I'm curious, I'm just curious, I think that there's an opportunity here for us to even think, what are the KPIs? What are the indicators that show me like, okay, I'm having a good day, I'm doing well. And then also this is what it looks like when I'm actually not. That's part of the reason, y'all, just to be perfectly candid, I didn't go live this morning because I was out of alignment and I needed time to get back in alignment and not speak when I was out of alignment. I know that when I'm out of alignment, that is actually then, okay, so what are my KPIs for in alignment, out of alignment? And then what action should I take as a result of recognizing that? So when I'm in alignment and I have my KPIs and I'm like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm kind of on the right track. Let me then do the things that I know that I'm called to do, which actually might be loving and serving and showing up and running the business or whatever is what I'm called to do that day. But then when I'm out of alignment, what actually do I need to do to protect others from me? Because y'all, here's the thing, when we're out of alignment, we can actually cause a lot of damage in our wake. And so when I'm out of alignment, I actually need to pull back relationally. I need to be more quiet. I need to say less. And I really need to keep real careful watch over myself and the settings I put myself in. When I'm out of alignment, I don't want to drink. I know that I know that probably y'all have very different, I'm sure we all have very different opinions on drinking. I do love a glass of wine, but when I'm out of alignment, I actually need to kind of go inward rather than distract myself. I need to put my phone down when I'm out of alignment. I need to not cope in another way. So what are the KPIs for it being in alignment versus out of alignment? And then what are the subsequent actions following that realization in both regards? Just jumping back here in the chat. T. Ryan, hello. Oh my gosh. Well, first, before I get to that, let me scroll back up. I have spillage. That's what I call it. I'm terrified because I know 100% what will happen to me emotionally. DJ, I wonder, have you, and this is just a question, have you found someone safe, like a safe friend or a safe mentor or a safe, I don't know, person in your life where you could, within the confines of this space? Like, I think of it as the arena. We talk about Theodore Roosevelt and his speech, Citizens in the Republic in, I think, 1914. And in that speech, he talks about the man in the arena. And in the arena is the concept that I think of like, okay, it's time for me to go do the work. But the arena is my space to open up and be vulnerable and do the work. And so I'm just wondering if you have someone or something or even a space where you can do that. So when you see emotions as a weakness, is because you recognize are dominating you, and that's what we all fear. The secret is usually to be humble enough to be the weakness and not the strongness. Image Elohim, enough to understand how it functions for real. What an interesting concept of effectively humility being connected with vulnerability. Am I humble enough to sit in my weakness? I think that's so important. I really, really, really love that. I've never thought about humility being necessary in kind of the bearing of the soul, in the acquaintance of the soul, So I know you guys have heard me talk about my book in the past. And, I talk about how compassion is actually so necessary for getting acquainted with the soul, and truth, obviously. But I love the concept about humility. Am I humble enough to be vulnerable? Word. I think we might end up doing a whole show on that next week. Image Elohim, thank you for saying that. That's so good. That's so, so, so good. Attaching yourself to another person emotionally is a bad idea, the gray tone. You know, it was so interesting. I went to this event a couple of years ago where this gentleman, frankly, I don't remember anything else other than this. He said, "Who is your emotional home?" And I was like, what? What? I don't know. And it just was so uncomfortable. And it was so potent because it was so early on after my husband left. And I had tried to make my husband my emotional home. And it never worked because well, for many reasons it didn't work. And at the same time, guys, we need to be our emotional home. Because in this concept, we talked about this before, this like, we've got this electrical, we're looking for an electrical socket. We've got like this electrical charge where, man, what source are we hooked up to where we're deriving our worth? So much of the time we're wandering around looking for someone or something to kind of like plug ourselves into, get the jolt of dopamine, get the jolt of meaning or purpose to then sustain us as we go through our life. And then we end up depleted. And then it's like, okay, well, now let me, go reattach to somebody else because either you ran dry, you're no longer giving me what I need. So let me unplug from you and go plug into another source. And so much of the time we actually are outsourcing our self, are outsourcing our emotions, making an emotional home with someone else, or looking to someone or something. And the something is very important because more and more people are getting obsessed with AI companions, where they're actually not sitting here and talking with people here in a chat, real human beings, and coming on and having these meaningful conversations. And so where are we outsourcing our worth? Where are we outsourcing our emotions? Where are we actually, to your point, not allowing the humility of looking at ourselves and going inward to then even become, try to even then become the emotional home? We cannot do that. We cannot actually find emotional safety within ourselves if we haven't looked in the mirror and we haven't done the work to then go inward. So to your point, attaching yourself to another emotionally is a bad idea. But can we attach ourselves to ourselves? Are we safe enough? Am I a safe place for the vulnerability of maybe that past narrative that I used to carry? Or am I a safe place for that little kid in me to show up and ask questions and process and experience life? Are we actually safe in and of ourselves to then see the truth about ourselves? Coming back to the chat. Thomas, hello. Luis, all I do is remember the past because I know the future is just going to be weird, never the same again. It's interesting. I actually think so much of examining the past is to almost for the purpose to be free from it, to remember and express gratitude and be thankful, and to learn from it and to be free from it so that we can be in the present fully, because for so long as we're looking at this present moment with our biases of the past, we're not actually seeing the reality of the present moment for what it is. And so if we want to experience real freedom, we actually need to reckon with the past, but it's to be grateful for it, to learn from it, and then to be free from it in so many ways. And I'm sure that, we could do a whole episode on that, but I hear you. Lux712, hello. Redneck, Francie, hello. Dr. Jonathan, good evening. Mind as energy and God as spirit, and brains as humanity are matter. When you achieve to dominate minds instead of let minds dominate your brain is when you learn real self-control. Interesting. Relationships of all types can appear transactional, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I suppose that's freely you give and freely you'd receive. The form is more important, though. Interesting. interesting. Guys, there's a lot here that I'm just like looking and thinking about. I'm also aware of the time because I do need to jump off here. We're having such a good conversation. Only the present exists physically. Yes, Bill. Where we search to master the sea of our emotion and others, and we fall in the deep of the abyss because we fall in love with ourselves and we forget. Oh, we forgot of God. The only good teachers have not suggested. Majellahim, I have a perspective here that I would love to hear your thoughts on. In me coming to know who I am and looking in the mirror, I actually came to know God so much more because he created us in his image. So for so long as I was ignoring me, the created, I was also ignoring just such a big part of the creator. And so we are made in his image and we're like him. And so in coming to know God, who did you make me to be? Man, I was like the lid of the box and the lid upon which I had put God in just blew off. And so just a thought to add to what you're talking about here. All right, y'all, I need to run. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad you guys did. This was really meaningful to engage. Y'all, there's so much that was said here tonight where I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to do whole shows on this. So I'm excited to copy the chat. I'm actually going to save it so that I can come back and read it and then maybe make some additional shows. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining today. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, and remember to give and to receive are one in truth. So have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern. And until then, have a wonderful evening. Bye, guys.